Our speaker here, Michael Shaw, inspired the founding, is the president of Freedom Advocates, originally Freedom 21 Santa Cruz. He has worked as a licensed certified public accountant, tax attorney, self-employed businessman, and abundance ecologist. He leads Freedom Advocates, speaks, writes, and both hosts and appears as a regular guest on talk radio. Michael, would you please come up?
Thank you, Dave. Well, it's a pleasure to be here in Oklahoma, and particularly in front of a group that's represented by business and legislators, because those are the two components of our society that have been lacking in the pickup on the globalist plan for the creation of a new order. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And it is a great pleasure to be here in Oklahoma City and the heartland of America. And while this thrust affects every community in America, my observation is that there's a few states leading the pack. Now, that's notwithstanding some of the bad news I'm going to tell you about Oklahoma today. But still, the spirit of Oklahomans seems to be risen above the spirit in many states. And so that really puts you in a leadership position for turning the tide, and if we don't turn the tide, we're all in trouble. Throughout history, government owned the citizenry. Some forms of authority were violent, others managed the people for the benefit of the rulers. No society recognized the value, much less the sovereignty, of the individual until 1776. America was the exception to centralized authority. That is our heritage. The foundation of America rests on the political recognition of each individual's natural or unalienable rights. Today, that recognition is lacking. Resurrecting that idea is why Freedom Advocates exists. Valuing life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, coupled with an honest monetary system, predicated on the practices of a moral citizenry, produced a society where individuals were free to pursue their lives. We all gain in such a society. Free enterprise grows standards of living and advances human achievement. The challenge today is how to restore this pursuit. Woefully, our government has abandoned its commitment to the protection of unalienable rights and to honest money. As a consequence, America flounders. Instead, a new philosophy with an accompanying action plan has been inserted, one that intends for humans to be managed as livestock. The point is that power has been allowed to consolidate and grow. Our political and economic systems are controlled by a globalist monetary system that intends to create a one-world governance society, already equipped with an international framework that includes the United Nations, the World Bank, the World Trade Organization, and the Bank of International Settlements. A new political order is well advanced. Today, the globalist objective is to work at the local level to advance this new world political economic plan that intends to monitor and control human action. For this, the globalists have a plan. The plan is called Agenda 21, Sustainable Development. So what is Agenda 21? Well, Agenda 21 is a document that outlines the implementation of sustainable development, which in their own words is a comprehensive plan for the restructure of society and the remake of man. Sustainable development is a communitarian program that is designed to transfer people into the globalist ideal of the new man. This concept requires individuals to become subservient to the needs of the community. After nearly 20 years of implementation, I can report that sustainable development policy is now in every county in America. It is time for Americans to understand that sustainable development is not about protecting the environment. We can see from this website, United Nations Sustainable Development Agenda 21, synonymous terms. Agenda 21, they say, is a comprehensive plan of action to be taken globally, nationally, and locally by organizations of the United Nations system, governments, and major groups in every area in which humans impact the environment. They've decreed that the exhale of your breath affects the environment. So literally everything comes under the control of this self-described comprehensive plan. The Commission on Sustainable Development was created in 1992 to ensure effective follow-up of UNCED, a UN agency, to monitor and report on the implementation of agreements at the national, local, regional, we'll talk a lot about that, and international levels. The U.S. Department of State reports federal agencies' progress on the implementation of Agenda 21. This is a report that was filed with the UN's follow-up summit in the year 2002, held in Johannesburg, South Africa. You see, Agenda 21, Sustainable Development, is the modern battlefield over future political economics and more. Despite its appearance as an environmental movement, Agenda 21 incorporates decades of UN world governance policies. Agenda 21 was written for and disseminated at the Rio de Janeiro UN Earth Summit in 1992. 178 nations signed on, including then-President George Bush, the father, signing on behalf of the United States. The last 4 presidents, 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, and both presumed major party candidates in 2012 election have made implementation of Agenda 21 the quiet cornerstones of their political careers. Agenda 21 Sustainable Development is the action plan for the implementation of a controlled society. Now, the plan is not conjecture. It's laid out in 3 documents. The first is Agenda 21 itself. This is the global plan. The United Nations Earth Summit, Agenda 21, is the document that came out of that UN conference back in 1992. Around the same time, another document called the Local Agenda 21 Planning Guide, produced by the ICLEI organization, the International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives, was also released. Along these same lines, this is my county's plan, initiated in the mid-1990s, called the Santa Cruz County Local Agenda 21 Plan, a sustainable community action plan, our agenda for the 21st century. You see, local infiltration is what proves how serious this program is. Remember, Agenda 21 describes itself as a comprehensive plan of action. Only a few communities, though, have entitled their plans Agenda 21. Discover your county's plan or plans. Anticipate sweet-sounding titles, including Sustainable Fresno, or Vision, or 2020, or Greenworks, or Plan OKC. The second document of the Agenda 21 blueprint is the UN's Global Biodiversity Assessment. This document is 1,150 pages. It is the guidebook for the worldwide environmental action. To save the environment, though, this official document calls for a reduction of human population, and it puts nature before man. Page 773 of that document states that population growth has exceeded the capacity of the biosphere. This is a false premise. It goes on to say, though, that it is estimated in an agricultural world in which most human beings are peasants, not my word, that's their word, should support 5 to 7 billion people, meaning that only maybe 2 billion people need to be eliminated. But in contrast, they go on to say, a reasonable estimate for an industrialized world society at the present American material standard of living would be 1 billion. Now that's an 85% reduction of today's human population. Based on this false premise, the Global Biodiversity Assessment also calls for the abolition of private property by directing the elimination of suburban housing, ranching, fossil fuel use, dams, reservoirs, and much, much more. Today, I will show how this process is unfolding across the country and right here in Oklahoma. Now, the third document comprising the Agenda 21 protocol is Sustainable Development's short Bible. It's called the Earth Charter. It was authored by Stephen Rockefeller, the son of former Vice President Nelson Rockefeller, the Soviet dictator Mikhail Gorbachev, and Maurice Strong. Maurice Strong was Secretary General at the '92 Earth Summit. He's a Canadian oil billionaire who is now residing in China, running the Agenda 21 program there. He lives there in order to escape Western justice for his role in the infamous oil for food scandal. The Earth Charter and its principles are taught in American schools in substitution for American principles. Each of the authors has proclaimed that the Earth Charter is to replace the Ten Commandments. Centralization of power combined with a proclamation of authority is known to be a scary proposition. Now, I want to help you recognize local infiltration of sustainable policies. So I'm going to share with you a freedom advocate's tool for showing the warm and fuzzy terms that arise regularly. These terms reveal Agenda 21 in operation. This is a partial list. I suggest you spend a couple moments, review it, and see how many terms you're familiar with. How many have seen these terms bandying around town? Okay. Supporters of Agenda 21 use a mantra illustrated by what they call the 3E pattern. The 3 E's represent a summarization of Agenda 21's blueprint. The oft-repeated 3 E's concept looks and works like this. The first is equity. By equity, they mean the use of sociology and a replacement system of justice called social justice in order to re-engineer humanity into a world collective. Second, E is economy. By economy, they mean the international redistribution of America's wealth through trade policy, foreign policy, and more. Economy also means the replacement of free enterprise with government-business partnership. Today we call that public-private partnership. And the third E is environment. Environment, they mean to put nature before man. This is the premise that nurtures the globalist call for a massive reduction in human population. This accounts for the rise of earth worship, or Gaia. The grand threat posed by globalism is the implementation of Agenda 21 Sustainable Development, the Global to Local Action Plan. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is why the defense of America begins in your neighborhood, your hometown, and the broader local community. Recognition of this fact will compel ordinary American people to gain control of school boards, fire boards, the sheriff office, city councils, and board of county supervisors. Remember, we can turn back this assault. It is important to understand that Agenda 21 is not a left versus right fight. By evaluating sustainable development, Agenda 21, to see the political economic action plan for world government, we can see that both the right and the left contribute to political globalism. From the left, we get the principles of social justice combined with the environmental movement. And from the right, we get the principles of social justice combined with public-private partnership. And together, those ingredients are what combine to create the process of sustainable development. Our need is to understand how both sides of the contrived spectrum contribute to the globalist action plan. Now, sustainable development policy has infiltrated almost everything. In that regard, it is worth noting that the Grand Old Party is a member of the International Democrat Union, that is IDU.org. The IDU's mission is the universal adoption of the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Under the UN system, all law is man-made. Nothing is immutable. George Bush Sr. and Governor Haley Barbour of Mississippi represent Republican leadership at the IDU. Now, this is the policy pronouncement from the IDU, agreed by the founders in London in 1983. It says there that being committed to advancing the social and political values on which democratic societies are founded, including the basic personal freedoms and human rights as defined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Now, both major parties are committed to globalism. That is why top leadership of political parties will not approach the issue of Agenda 21 sustainable development. I'm now going to contrast the difference between the American philosophy of individual rights with the globalist philosophy of community rights, because that is what we are really talking about. So, which philosophy of rights is suited for us? In America, the nature of rights are individual. The legal source for the recognition of those rights is our own Declaration of Independence. And under that document, the purpose of government is to protect the natural or unalienable rights of the individual. It says in our Declaration that all men are created equal and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Well, let's contrast that with a system of community rights as espoused by the globalist entourage. There, the source of their law is the aforementioned United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, where the purpose of government becomes to control the individual for the greater good of a global community. Article 29, Section C of that document says the following: that rights and freedoms may be in no case exercised contrary to the purposes and principles of the United Nations. It's the man behind the black curtain that calls the shots. You see, under the UN policies, government grants, restricts, and withdraws your rights according to its needs. You and the product of your labor belong to the community. Let's contrast that with the U.S. system, where you're born with rights and where government, legitimate government, exists to protect those rights. You and the product of your labor belong to you. Now, the judicial system that protects individual rights is based on the principle of freedom called equal justice. Equal justice supports true diversity, a respect for the independence and the unalienable rights of the individual, and genuine respect for individuality. Equal justice protects us from mob rule. A system of human rights or community rights operates to pursue social justice, which can be defined as law formulated to obtain government's social objectives at the expense of individuality. The Sustainable Development Agenda is based on the principle that the collective good and democracy are more important than recognizing unalienable rights and the republic designed to protect them. The Sustainable Development Agenda is in direct opposition to America's cornerstone principle of equal justice. Equal justice is the wonder within mankind's greatest achievement, and that was the Declaration of Independence. Now, there are three broad principles that underlie Agenda 21. The first is the abolition of private property. Second is education for global citizenship. Do you think the notion of unalienable rights is presented in today's schools? Well, take notice of the number of young sustainablers, many of them who identify themselves as global citizens. Universities are building an army of young college graduates, some with actual degrees in sustainability. For even younger people, there are the policies and assessments of No Child Left Behind, all geared to neuter the next generation's understanding of liberty and of the American experiment, while training them to be global governance serfs. The third driving principle of Agenda 21 is control over human action. For instance, we see technological advances used by government to monitor the individual. We see this happening through federal legislation that would direct biometric identification of you embedded in your state driver's license. That means you can walk down the street and a monitor can pick up everything about you and know everything that you thought was private, because all this information gets dumped in to information that gets reported through the system on your driver's license. We see the advent of cameras everywhere. Coming from the airport to here, I saw big cameras on your stoplights to help monitor and watch what we all do. We see the advent of internet health records. That privilege you had with you and your doctor no longer exists. Your doctor puts these records on the internet. This information can be compiled and organized by government agencies to an end that's not to our best interests. We have the TSA body grabbers. We have a GPS and other satellite technologies that can watch and trace every move you make. And we have government accessible databases that have everything about you that you now think is private. You see, sustainable development is about assessing, monitoring, and controlling you and everybody else. Smart electrical meters. Talk about managing and controlling us. That is why policy for decades has been driving us towards shortages, including the arrived at shortages of electricity and water throughout much of the West. Policy, coupled with technology, has made possible the attainment of centralized management and control over resources and individual action. Smart water is around the corner. We have turned our back on water development throughout the West. Available water supply has been managed in order to create the shortage that we are now and increasingly will be experiencing. I will focus my comments on the first objective of Agenda 21, and that is to abolish private property concerning land. But to understand what is at issue, we have to understand the nature of private property. You see, private property includes your hands. These are my private property. It includes your thoughts. That's the essence of private property. And it includes your relationship to something. It is not the thing itself. It's the relationship between a human and something. And by relationship, I mean the power to use and enjoy that thing. This includes living on and working the land to the benefit of oneself and to a waiting market. We also have to understand that a fiat money system, that is, money made out of thin air and loaned out to us, undermines the notion of private property because it erases free enterprise while enabling public-private partnerships to take over. While lip service is being given to preserving the family farm, independent farmers are being set up to sell to major corporate interests or to conservation groups like the Nature Conservancy. The perfect partners with government in a new age, new world economy. It is time to take notice of this and to take action to restore the republic. Now, as America implements Agenda 21's land use programs called Smart Growth and the Wildlands Project, recognition of unalienable rights is obliterated. Let me explain these land use programs with the help of this map. How many people have seen this map before? Well-informed audience. That's what I like about Oklahomans. Let's define some terms. Wildland, removal of people and the prohibition of resource extraction. This is why we can't get our oil. This is why we import our trees from Japan. This is why minerals are no longer being mined in this country. The areas that are part of the wildlands are indicated on this map in red. The yellow areas are buffers to the wildlands where public-private partners will engage in limited and controlled activities. Smart growth is the stacking and packing of human beings in dense cities down the street, where public transportation and the development of walkable communities rather than automobility is to take priority. Smart growth areas, also referred to the UN as human settlements, are demonstrated by the black dots on this map, largely arranged along both coasts. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why you're here today. You're seeing the same plans that are overwhelming California and other places. The same plans, the same proponents, and the same programs are in every town in America. Wildlands and smart growth are epidemic throughout the U.S., not just here. Now, the land policy of the United Nations was first officially articulated at the United Nations Conference on Human Settlements. It was held in Vancouver, Canada in 1976. This quote is from the preamble of the UN policy on land. Land, they say, cannot be treated as an ordinary asset controlled by individuals and subject to the pressures and inefficiencies of the market. Private land ownership is a principal instrument of accumulation and concentration of wealth and therefore contributes to social injustice. If unchecked, it may become an obstacle in the planning and implementation of development schemes. It's their word, not mine. Public control of land use is therefore indispensable. The Wildlands Network is being implemented at all levels of American government and is designed to serve the globalist objective in regard to land use and resource development. If private property and freedom are inseparable, freedom is in real trouble. What we're seeing all across the West are these signs, the roadless areas that are being created as part of the Wildlands Project. Roads all over America are simply being closed. The wonderful open space areas become more and more restrictive until eventually we're simply going to be told, keep out. Oh, this sign comes from my hometown. The land that this sign is on used to be a berry farmer's land. Well, somebody discovered a long-toed salamander, a Santa Cruz specialty, became an endangered species. His land was taken from him. The neighboring communities thought, gee, won't this be nice? We'll have this nice land to use ourselves. But instead, the federal government posted these signs. National Wildlife Refuge, again, a salamander. Unauthorized entry prohibited. Only the insiders can access this land. The area beyond this sign is closed. All public entry prohibited. These signs are an epidemic around the United States. I'm going to shift my focus to review how our constitutional government is being transitioned into one of globalized central control. To understand this, we have to examine regionalism. Let's first take a look at an excerpt from the United Nations Agenda 21. This is Chapter 7 regarding human settlements and promoting transport systems. International organizations should, we are told, use a comprehensive approach to urban transport planning and management. We're getting real close to Plan OKC right now. We need to encourage development patterns that reduce transport demand. That means make walkable communities, get people out of their cars, put them on bicycles. We need to adopt urban transport programs favoring high occupancy public transport. And we need to encourage non-motorized modes of transportation by providing safe cycleways and footways in urban and suburban centers in counties. Your town is adopting these transport systems. This is because these systems are imposed upon locales by a regional level of government, largely unknown and, when known, always underestimated. Regionalism is being used to destroy traditional political boundaries like county lines and usher in a transformed system of governance that abolishes private property. Regionalism is an important political concept. Regionalism has overtaken the entire country. The large-scale version of modern regionalism is a federally imposed extra-constitutional layer of government that covers the entire nation. Regionalism might sound benign, but the consequences must be understood by freedom-loving people, or liberty will be trampled. We may have all thought what NARCs were, but let me tell you what a NARC really is. NARC is the National Association of Regional Councils. It serves as the national voice of regionalism through effective interaction and advocacy with Congress, federal officials, and other agencies and interest groups. NARC's agenda includes, but is not limited to, transportation, community and economic development, environment, homeland security, regional preparedness, and community issues. Now, the Oklahoma Association of Regional Councils, that's OARC. How many people know of the Oklahoma Association of Regional Councils? Okay, much less awareness. These regional councils are running your town. They dictate major zoning decisions, infrastructure decisions, and more. They are bringing in transit-oriented development and sustainable transportation aimed at getting you out of your cars. The mission at ORC, which was incorporated in 1992, is to advance regional issues and to advocate for regionalisms and the councils of governments to the public. Citizens must know about the following regional planning and development agencies: councils of government, so-called COGs, and metropolitan planning organizations, labeled MPOs. So what is a council of government? Well, COGs are region-wide associations of local governments, regional bodies typically geographically arranged, which serve an area of several counties to address issues such as regional and municipal planning, economic and community development, cartography and GIS, hazard mitigation and emergency planning, aging services, water use, pollution control, transit administration, and transportation planning. And you thought your city council had something to do with these things. This is the Oklahoma Councils of Government. You can see ACOG in the center of the map. That's who governs you here in Oklahoma City. There are 11 COGs which serve Oklahoma's 77 counties, 629 municipal governments, and 3.5 million people. 2 of your COGs are federally recognized MPOs. So what is an MPO? A metropolitan planning organization is an agency created by federal law, input for urban transportation planning and allocating federal transportation funds to cities with populations greater than 50,000. MPOs are federally mandated and, like COGs, give opportunity for the restructuring of the American government. They are setting an infrastructure for a new economic system based on public-private partnership and the replacement of free enterprise. COGs and MPOs are federalized organizations that break down America's constitutionally formulated government structure. Their purpose is to control and direct local government from behind the scenes. Today, they propel federal injection of the globalist Agenda 21 action plan into local government policy and thereby negate the protections afforded by our constitutional system. In the words of Charlotte Iserby, former Department of Education official and author of The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America, regionalism is communism. Regionalism promotes Soviet-style councils that develop policy that is then rubber-stamped by elected officials with no meaningful public oversight. It is an extra-constitutional level of government that advances globalist objectives while insulating most elected officials. In short, American regionalism is the instrument used to advance these globalist goals and political restructure of America. COGs and American regionalism implement a step-by-step approach to the abolition of private property. They promote the relocation of people from the wildlands and corridor areas to smart growth areas, and they provide a conscription of public-private partners, the mandatory volunteers of the new fifth column. The government no longer operates the way your 8th grade textbook explained it. People know that a Soviet system of government is a dismal failure. A failure so bad, in fact, that it's inconceivable to consider that a Soviet-style change agent might actually be Americans living and working in our neighborhoods. Even worse would be to discover that your smiling political leaders might also be such agents of change. In fact, there is this whole Soviet system of councils, including MPOs and COGs, that is directing your local government. But what does Soviet mean? A Soviet is a system of councils that report to an apex council and implement a predetermined outcome that affects a region or a neighborhood. It is often arranged through a process of facilitated consensus. Members of a Soviet Council are chosen by their willingness to comply and their one-mindedness with the group. Soviets are the operating mechanism of a government-controlled economy, whether it be socialism or public-private partnerships. A Soviet is a system of interconnected councils that work to destroy individual personality, suppress individual potential, and centralize power into the hands of those who would seek to control human action and human production. The scary part is that these Sovietized federal regional organizations are throughout the country. But the battle is always local. Let's examine another important aspect of the local Agenda 21 action plan. The International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives, known as ICLEI, also known as Local Governments for Sustainability. This is the most vulnerable globalist organization operating in America today simply because they are an international UN partner working under contract with local government and your regional Soviet. This goes back to that book that I showed you at the beginning, written by ICLEI, the Local Agenda 21 Planning Guide. So who is ICLEI? Well, ICLEI, in its own words, says that we are an international association of local governments implementing sustainable development. They go on to say that ICLEI's mission is to build and serve a worldwide movement of local governments to achieve tangible improvements in global environmental and sustainable development conditions through cumulative local action. Now, ICLEI is an important NGO that uses the fraud of man-made global warming and climate change as a scare tactic and as a legislative tool. ICLEI has formed an international congress filled with your city and county representatives. This Congress acts as a shadow world government today. ICLEI directs local governments and provides statutory and regulatory provisions that implement sustainable policy locally. Now, ICLEI is a worldwide organization. Its headquarters are in Bonn, Germany. It is located on every continent in the country. This is part of an organized assault that is focused on America. So what do we do? Well, Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution makes the following prohibition. Quote, "No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation with a foreign political entity." So, of course, neither may a city. So we've got to ask this question. Is it treasonous for city leaders to contract with ICLEI, an international NGO accredited by the United Nations for purposes of implementing Agenda 21 and for participating in a world congress? The answer is yes. ICLEI contracts are treasonous. Just to show ICLEI's commitment to the globalist order, everybody knows that in Rio in another week or two will be another decade international conference on Agenda 21. It's the Rio Plus 20 conference being held in Rio de Janeiro again. And we can see from this PowerPoint that ICLEI is quite involved. You know, the UN member states have agreed on the following two themes for the conference: a green economy within the context of sustainable development and poverty eradication, and an institutional framework for sustainable development. They want to secure a renewed political commitment to sustainable development. Well, the facts are clear. ICLEI is a major force in the globalization process. In fact, the leader of ICLEI has said the United Nations will change its name and focus, and it will become the United Cities of the world. You know these places? We'll talk more about Oklahoma City's commitment to ICLEI. Now, contracts with ICLEI guarantee implementation of international political and economic policy at the local level. Drive city alliances with ICLEI out of the communities surrounding you. The number of communities with citizens working to remove ICLEI is expanding. Edmond was one of the first, as citizens begin to tie the links between ICLEI, Agenda 21, and the loss of freedom. America will not revive without kicking out ICLEI and by addressing the even more challenging and difficult step of withdrawing from the cogs. American people's goal must be to rein in the federal government and get rid of non-elected councils. But how do we do that? Not easily. To get there, the battle we can and must win soon is the local battle. And to win that local war, you must know of your area's local Agenda 21 program, which we will explore in Part 2 following the break. The pattern you will see is the same pattern in operation everywhere across America. Now, before I get into your local Agenda 21 programs, I'm going to give a brief description of 3 congressional breaches of constitutional authority that opened the door for the implementation of the Global to Local Action Plan of Agenda 21. The first issue is about federal ownership and/or management of broad landscapes. Implementation of the Wildlands Network is a violation of Article 1, dealing with the legislative branch, Section 8, dealing with legislative powers of the United States Constitution. The federal government has no authority to own or to manage areas of land. The Constitution was written to protect the unalienable rights of the people, not to abrogate them. The Wildland Network works to abrogate unalienable rights, not protect them. If you look at the West, 40% of the West is owned by the federal government. Article 1, Section 8 limits what the federal government can do to things like post offices, military bases, and needful buildings. There is no authority in the United States Constitution for the federal ownership of areas like Yellowstone or Yosemite or all the rest of the Sierra Nevadas and Colorado Rockies that is owned by the federal government. The second major constitutional breach conducted by Congress in the 20th century was the delegation of trade policy to international institutions. Congress has delegated authority over U.S. trade policy to the World Trade Organization and to various multilateral pact organizations. This abrogates national security. The effects of surrendering trade policy include a disintegrating border and a constitutional taxing authority. Article 1, Section 9 becomes neutered. American industries are lost to the globalization process. Average American earner wages are reduced toward global norms, requiring both parents to work. Multinational corporations profit from the cheap, often slave labor from overseas. American involvement in the World Trade Organization is designed to destroy the nation. And a third congressional breach is the delegation of monetary authority. This is a long-standing abrogation of their constitutional duties, and that is they delegated the monetary responsibilities to a globalist system of central banks, resulting in the loss of a constitutional and honest monetary system. This action provides the indispensable ingredient for creating world government. Congress has no authority to delegate an exclusive monetary system to a third party. The current monetary system is designed to cause a financial collapse, which allows the opportunity to further consolidate and strengthen globalist policy. The collapse of the monetary system appears to be in process now. So, we need to cause federal land to become private property or state lands. We need to reestablish an American trade policy in D.C., and we must replace the current fiat monetary system. Each of these constitutional breaches is a pillar upon which globalism and Agenda 21 is being constructed. I recommend you go to freedomadvocates.org and regularly check the town crier to learn about upcoming events, as well as to learn about the efforts to fight back against Agenda 21 coming in from all over the country. The globalist invasion has occurred right under our noses. Every county in America has its local Agenda 21 implementation underway. Your representatives need to understand who they represent. The reason representatives are here is because they know that. Other representatives must be held accountable. In coordination with ICLEI, the regional organizations, including an abundance of NGOs, that is non-governmental organizations, and other public-private partnerships are planning together how you and future generations will live. Freedom is not on their agenda. Let's take a look at some Oklahoma regional players. We've already talked about ORC. Now let's look at the Association of Central Oklahoma Governments, otherwise known as ACOG. How many people have heard of ACOG? Good. ACOG is a council of government, that is a COG, and a member of ORC. COGs pretend to be voluntary, but if you don't go along with their governance demands, you're out of luck. They are federally directed. Local areas do not get federal money if they don't go along with what ACOG tells you to do. And every dollar that comes to Oklahoma City is filled with strings attached. Let's look at the typical ACOG Sustainable Communities Workshop. I mean, I've given this basic speech outline across America, and there's always this PowerPoint. In fact, what you're going to see has duplicates in every metropolitan area in America. But what ACOG is promising your community is significant federal funding in order to create a regional plan for sustainable development. This is right out in the open, folks. The program places a priority on investing in partnerships and bringing multiple voices to the regional planning process. How many have been involved as one of the voices to the regional planning process? 2 of you. What is your vision, they asked, for the future of the central Oklahoma region? Now remember, regions is how the Soviet Union was run. They ask the questions and understand that there are predetermined answers to these questions. Does your vision include more transportation choices? You tired of driving your car? You want a bicycle? Do you want plenty of affordable, meaning government housing in your town? Do you want a better and stronger economy? Adolf Hitler knew how to bring that. It doesn't last for long, but it sure gives a shot in the arm as you die on the vine. Do you want healthy, safe, walkable communities and neighborhoods? Do you want a thriving local food system? I'm going to talk about the local food system that they intend to bring. ACOG is running your city. It controls major zoning decisions, infrastructure decisions, and more. There is no accountability. Who's even aware of their existence out in the general public? Politicians need to take on regionalism. Regional planning is a major tax spending investment. It is an investment in central planning. It also restructures American government by morphing boundaries and undermining local government. Sustainable development generally works to achieve predetermined or preferred outcomes. You are in for a bad ride. Let's talk about regional transit-oriented development. How many have heard that term before? Good. They're doing the same thing in Oklahoma that they're doing in the dense Bay Area of California. One Bay Area. Equity, they tell us, is a central component of sustainability along with economy and environment, which together define the 3 E's of regional planning. That's a straightforward, true statement coming from our COG called ABAG. 97%, they tell us, of all new households will be accommodated in already urbanized areas, particularly in cities where residents have access to frequent public transit service. Under this scenario, 70% of the growth, or 600,000 new households, will go into places that have been designated close to transit by local jurisdictions. Now, One Bay Area is a program of ABAG, which is the Association of Bay Area Governments, the COG for the San Francisco Bay region. The COG intends to fund $250 billion to implement One Bay Area. Imagine that. That's one metropolitan area in America being committed $250 billion to implement this remake of how and where people live. Multiply that times every metropolitan area in America and you begin to see how it is intended to break the dollar. Back to Oklahoma. The RTD, Central Oklahoma Regional Transit Dialogue. Smart growth aims to create growing communities that provide a range of housing, commercial, and transportation options that are focused on transit-oriented development, meaning sustainable zoning practices which create higher density development. Flying into Oklahoma City, it didn't seem to me that Oklahoma needs to densify itself. That's just my opinion. Oklahomans should encourage sustainable land uses that preserve agricultural land and avoid consumptive land use without real growth. That doesn't even mean anything. Oklahomans could create greater housing density in certain districts and/or corridors of a municipality through public-private partnership pilot projects. Any form of sustainability must include equity. The Soviet Union never figured it out to this degree. This is the Soviet Union's program on steroids. Central planning for central Oklahoma. A lot of money is going to fund this, but the thrust behind Agenda 21 is also the thrust behind the control of the monetary system. So blowing the money, creating an unpayable debt, while creating their new world is of double benefit to the globalists now in control of our society. We need to catch on. Now, the Bay Area is way past these small figures for studying these proposals. But because you are a recent addition to the COG empire across America, you're at the beginning stages of the funding for the remake of Oklahoma City. HUD and DOT award nearly $900,000 to Oklahoma City, which will support 62 local and regional partnerships seeking to create a more holistic and integrated approach to connecting government housing, they call it affordable, costs twice as much to build government housing, by the way, as it does for a free enterprise builder to go out and build the same thing. Job opportunities and transportation corridors. Department of Transportation Secretary Ray LaHood said, "We are strengthening neighborhoods by connecting housing with affordable and sustainable transportation choices." That means no cars. This is a win-win for people who live in these communities because they will have travel options to better serve them. Well, I've been to cities where all this new type of development is being built without garages, without parking spaces. If you live there, many of these places, you contract not to own a car. Chicago is a great example of this. $500,000 is being used to seed these programs. Plan OKC will lead to a program like the One Bay Area Plan. This planning is happening everywhere. And again, I say, what better way to doom the dollar? Everyone here, I'm sure, knows about Plan OKC. So on the Plan OKC website, they ask, what is Plan OKC? Oklahoma is developing a new comprehensive plan. Well, we've already seen that in the UN documents, called Plan OKC. It is a long-range plan for the goal of ensuring a healthy environment, community, and equity. That's the 3 E's. Plan OKC will guide the decisions that affect the choices you will have in the future about where you live, where you work, learn, shop, and play. Well, they're going to more than affect the choices. They're going to control the choices. They're going to limit your choices. In fact, choice will become a lost word. And here we go. This is from the Plan OKC website. I didn't draw this, but this is the same emblem I see every city I go to. They all have the 3 E's looped together this way. These people are not original. It's all cookie cutter, coming from the same source, being deployed in every American metropolitan area. This plan is Oklahoma City's primary Agenda 21 guidebook, just like the local Agenda 21 guidebook that infests Santa Cruz, California. It is made to look so benign, but you can come to understand their meaning of terms and monitor their programs, and then you can ask what it is you can do about it. Let's look at more from Plan OKC. You see, they want to plan future land use, transportation, environmental and natural resource issues. They want to plan the communities, plan parks and recreation, etc. This is central planning on steroids. Moscow was never this organized. The globalist vision, but I might add that Beijing probably is. The globalist vision is government-controlled housing, getting people out of their cars, comprehensive control over human action, with people jammed like sardines and made easily expendable. This is all in accordance with Agenda 21 sustainability policy and objectives. Let's look at Connect OKC from Plan OKC, the transportation element. It says that the purpose of this element is to make our street system work together with transit, trails, sidewalks, and the bike network, and ensure that all methods of travel are considered, all methods of travel are considered as the city moves forward. The continued dependency on automobiles creates a demand for parking that consumes developable land, reduces densities, and negatively impacts the environment. Cars are the first objective of Agenda 21 proponents. Plan OKC will lead to increased fees for drivers and decreased viability for using your car. As I've traveled around to various cities, what I've seen is developments with limited or no parking, houses with no garages, streets with 4 lanes reduced to 2. That's how I got here this morning from as I went to breakfast. And roundabouts as a feature of the traffic calming ritual designed to reduce auto use. Let's just take a little pictorial example of what happens. And I saw a road right here like this morning. This is called a road diet. Let's watch what happens. It's an effective, efficient roadway for the transportation of people. Up 4 lanes down to 2 lanes, but we've got bicycle lanes. Isn't that nice? Now let's calm the traffic a little bit so that we hit some bumps and decide, gee, it's just not worth driving a car. This process is happening everywhere. This comes from Plan OKC. Transportation. They say that 64% of ozone-causing pollutants are caused by automobiles. Ozone-causing pollutants? I thought that was a scam that faded a decade ago. The average person, they say, drives 40% more than 2 decades ago. So? And over 99% of trips are by automobile. Well, damn, that must mean that Oklahomans are lazy. You could be walking. So much of the Agenda 21 invasion at the local level relies upon the man-made global warming fraud. But national and international consensus on man-made, man-caused climate change has dissipated. Copenhagen was a bust, and even the globalist U.S. Senate won't adapt cap and trade. Only the California legislature has done that. The unraveling masquerade is beginning to hit the local political scene. People across America need to realize that the man-made global warming charade is being used to drive local, think ICLEI and COGS, policy in order to usher in globalism in transition from the American way. So, why are you being stuck with land use controls based upon this bogus issue? Do you want to destroy our way of life to solve a problem that doesn't even exist? That is what Plan OKC demands that you do. But at least you've got a bicycle transportation plan. In order to reap the economic, environmental, and social benefits, I mean, they never stop this lingo, of a bicycle-friendly community, this plan takes a comprehensive approach. Now we've got another comprehensive approach on how to get on bicycles as our approach to transportation planning. Elements used to develop a comprehensive and cooperative approach. Cooperative simply means go along or else. To bicycle transportation planning include education, encouragement, enforcement, and education planning. And I always think bicycles as transportation. Is this what you want your mother to be doing when she's 70 years old? You see, I contend that bicycles are not transportation in a developed society unless you're 12 years old. Bikes otherwise are for recreation. That is not the society I want to become part of. Let's look at the nanny state as directed by Plan OKC. I was a little reluctant to include this in the speech, but it's your city. The lifestyle component concludes that Oklahoma City is the #2 fattest city in America. 29% of residents are clinically obese. I've been to the airport, and I've been there from there to here and around a little bit. Where do they get this stuff from? Who's responsible for it? Did you know that your residents, Oklahomans, spend 13% more time watching television than the rest of us? and 83% of residents do not eat the recommended servings of fruit and vegetable per day. And your city is now going to change all that under Plan OKC. Aren't you lucky? You know, you're being targeted. The federal government has identified that 1/3 of Oklahoma City's citizens are not only fat, but obese. So they're going to conform your lifestyle and manage your weight. Lucky Oklahoma. Our federal and your city parents have your best interests in mind. Now, I've seen a lot of strange politicians in my travels around America. But this guy comes close to taking the cake. You have a mayor's program for the loss of 1 million pounds. This city is going on a diet.com. It's a challenge created by Mayor Dick Cornett to the citizens of Oklahoma to lose 1 million pounds. Now, who elects people like this? But there's something deeper about your mayor. This is him at the World Bank. What is the mayor of a city in America doing at the World Bank? Well, he elaborated. For one, it's not enough to structure an attractive tax incentive scheme. This mayor is focused on revitalizing his downtown district and investing heavily in green infrastructure, which is also health-friendly and helping to reduce obesity. He emphasized by using such things as trails and bikeways. I mean, I live in the land of fruit and nuts. But in California, I've not seen anything this egregious. Now, Oklahoma City, like many cities across America, including the city of Austin, has received money under the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009. Energy projects are designed to meet federal goals by investing in environmental protection through fuel technologies that can reduce carbon emissions. The city has been awarded $5.5 million for these projects. The energy efficiency and conservation strategy includes 12 projects plus funding for the Office of Sustainability to manage these projects. All this money went to the Office of Sustainability, all to fund sustainability projects. Now, you're not in the league of the Bay Area with $250 billion coming our way, but here it is, $5.5 million, all for seeding the sustainability projects in your neighborhood. You know, I talked once to the Austin, Texas head of the Office of Sustainability there, and I asked her, what about the provisions that call for massive population reduction? She says, oh, I know that's there, but I don't support that. As though it would make any difference whether she supported it or not. She's implementing the programs that are the setup for the massive depopulation. City of Oklahoma City, OKC.government, the Office of Sustainability is responsible for enhancing the city's energy efficiency efforts and promoting sustainability throughout the organization and community. So therefore, the office coordinates energy efficiency upgrades and provides technical recommendations. The purpose of the office is to integrate sustainability principles into decision-making for improved, here we go, the 3 E's again. It's a pattern throughout your city hall. But it extends beyond your city hall. But first, let's just make note that they intend to create their energy efficiency programs by monitoring individuals and households. And you ask, how are they going to do that? And I say, that will happen through smart meters and the smart grid. Let's talk about Oklahoma Gas and Electric. OG&E is building the positive energy smart grid in partnership with customers. The new meter allows OG&E to remotely read, connect, and disconnect service. And don't think that that's not the plan. You are going to get the same kind of service that I get from PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric. And by that I mean shortage. Shortage by design. If you don't conserve, the power will go out. If you do conserve, the power will go out. Utility bills are in the midst of rapidly advancing unit costs. We are being transformed. Can you tell that yet? Your smart meters are tied into a globalist smart grid system. It tells the government about all your uses and gives the government the capacity to control your access to and usage of energy. This is what the global smart grid looks like, according to the Global Energy Network Institute. It is a global plan. Smart meters are part of a new global plan to upgrade the world electrical grid to a smart grid and reduce energy consumption. According to the Department of Energy website, smart grid generally refers to applying computer-based remote control and automation technology to utility electricity delivery systems. This grid amounts to the networks that carry electricity from the plants to where it is where it is generated to consumers. It includes adding two-way digital communication technology to devices associated with the grid. A key feature of the smart grid is the automation technology that lets the utility adjust and control each individual device or millions of devices from a central location. The number of applications that can be used on the smart grid once the data communication technology is deployed is growing as fast as companies can create and produce them. Water is going to follow the same smart approach. Just last month, on May 21st, Governor Mary Fallin signed into law HB 3055, a water bill entitled the Water Act, the Water for the Year 2060 Act. Water conservation, they say, took a giant leap forward through the passage of Speaker of the House Chris Steele's Water Act for 2060, which makes Oklahoma the first state in the nation to establish a comprehensive statewide goal of consuming no more fresh water in 2060 than is consumed today. Well, that may be true, but let me tell you, every place is under pressure for water. In Santa Cruz, we have actually reduced our water consumption by 30%. And as a consequence, the per unit rate on water has increased by 30%. The water district hasn't reduced its revenue, they just increased the rates as usage drops. All places have been put under water pressure. And that's because water, while it never disappears, I mean, there's nothing we can do that can cause a reduction in the amount of water on the planet. The issue with water is how do we develop it and how do we transport it? And then what do we do with it once it's been used in order to revitalize it? This is a process that civilization has been going through for centuries. It's a process that's understood, but today the process is to break the dams, to reduce the delivery of water for human beings. The ultimate plan is for water to be piped from the Arctic to America, where people under World Bank policy are limited to 10 gallons of water per day. Today's American usage of water is 140 gallons of water per day. We're in for increasingly constricting use of water. That all supports a massive reduction in human population. You know, if you can control the water, you can control the people. If you can control the water, you can control food production. I'm going to pause and just suggest something, since there's some legislators here particularly, that Oklahomans should consider. There are two states, there are really two places in the entire world where water law is perfected to a private property law standard. And those two places are, sorry to say, Texas and California. California has a red star on its flag. in commemoration of Texas, who was the first place in the world that made water law compliant to property law. You know, property law holds that you don't just own the surface of land. You own a core down to the center of the earth, and you own a frame up into the sky. So all things that sit under your land, you know, if you've got gold under your land, you've got the right to mine it. You've got other minerals, you've got the right to mine it. And if you've got water, you've got the right to draw it. It's that simple. That's the rules of Texas. Those are the rules of California. I can tell you that as California falls apart, and as we have a Supreme Court, we have one element in California that has been protected. As our Supreme Court has routinely ruled that the water does not belong to the water agency, it belongs to the overlying land user. Without private interests in water, we will all be living on the 32nd floor of a stack and pack building in a metropolitan area with our 10 gallon of water allocation per day. Pressure in California and Texas to subvert this law is overwhelming. What needs to happen is that places that respect private property like Oklahoma need to adopt the Texan-California water law regime. Otherwise, you're sunk. Literally. Let's take a look at some NGOs in Oklahoma. How many people know of Green Plus? Well, Green Plus seeks to complement the work of other organizations promoting sustainable practices in communities by growing a turnkey national sustainability certification program that works through chambers of commerce to introduce the concepts of the triple bottom line, pure Agenda 21, to small and medium-sized employers and foster networks of sustainable organizations and reward participants for their efforts. Ay, ay, ay. If there's any meat behind that statement, you're in trouble. The American Chamber of Commerce, by the way, is an NGO, non-governmental organization. There are thousands of NGOs in the United States. It's not just the environmental groups like the Sierra Club. It includes the Chamber of Commerce and the American Farm Bureau. Understand this. NGOs are organizations that are accredited by the United Nations for the implementation of Agenda 21. Continuing with Green Plus, regional sustainability organizations. In Oklahoma, they pronounced that the Oklahoma Sustainability Network serves to connect and educate the people of Oklahoma concerning the many aspects of sustainability. OSN is a catalyst and a resource for the improvement of Oklahoma's 3 E's. More from the Oklahoma Sustainability Network. This network serves to connect and educate the people of Oklahoma considering the many aspects of sustainability. We are a catalyst and a resource for the improvement of Oklahoma's economy, ecology, and equity. OSN welcomes all individuals interested in any area of sustainability. These areas range from agriculture to commerce, energy to education. Regional sustainability organizations, Green Plus, Sustainable Oklahoma City. At Sustainable Oklahoma City, sustainability is based upon the interaction of business, environment, and social justice. Those are just the 3 E's. We envision an Oklahoma City in which businesses are socially and environmentally responsible. Ay, ay, ay. You're going to need a lot of Nazi-like soldiers to really make that happen. In which the improvement of our environment is a mainstream non-political activity that contributes to our economy, and in which social justice is given equal weight with business and environment in establishing community. We're talking about the total remake of the American philosophy. And it has swarmed Oklahoma City. So about Sustainable OKC, they call themselves a grassroots organization, directed by the United Nations, working at the crossroads of business, environment, and social justice. The same claptrap you see everywhere. What is sustainability? They actually even define it by the United Nations, reference. They call it meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Well, that phrase came right out of the 1977 Soviet Constitution, adopted by the UN and now implemented by sustainable Oklahoma City. Keep Oklahoma Beautiful, another NGO. They write and talk about new urbanism. Transportation, they say, plays a pivotal role in sustainability and in a truly efficient transportation. And by that they mean walking, bicycling, and transit use. This, they say, is only possible where there is a compact urban form. See it just a quarter of a mile this way. And take note, automobiles are not included in that analysis. Keep Oklahoma Beautiful is promoting the Wildlands Network. They say that the United States is losing land at an alarming rate. With more than 2 million acres of land lost every year to inappropriate development. I don't know what that is, but I can tell you who said it. That was the United States Department of Agriculture and NRCS Natural Resources Inventory, and they said that in 2005. They go on to say current rates and patterns of land consumption, if left unchecked, will result in wide-scale loss and fragmentation of the special natural places we need and love within the next 20 years. What that means is that they want to have this defragmented wildlands so that the animals, the wolves, can come from Canada down to Texas. They got to have corridors and pathways for these animals that are unaffected by human beings. That's what this is talking about, and that's the primary focus of USDA today. As they say, land lost is land lost forever. So who decides? Either it's individuals making the decisions, or it is centralized power that reigns. We're on the verge of centralized power. Did you know that community is not just a zip code? Keep Oklahoma Beautiful is here to help. In this section, you will find tips on how to make your local office or school more sustainable. So they've got on their community section, these subjects listed. Let's take a look at the first one. Transition Oklahoma City. Now, transition towns like Oklahoma City have spread all over California. Santa Cruz is a transition town. Ryan Coonerty, Santa Cruz councilman and sometimes mayor, and graduate of the London School of Economics, no doubt helped facilitate Transition Santa Cruz to my area. A key to understanding transition towns is recognizing that the organization is founded and operated out of Great Britain. Our sources in Great Britain inform us that transition towns are a creation of the British Fabian Socialist Society. You see, King George is back. He's overtaking America without firing a shot. I want to help make Oklahomans aware of the local infiltration of globalist policy and help people understand how globalist political economic policy is instituted locally so that we can escape its clutches. Transition Oklahoma City prepares projects to make us more sustainable. It hosts networking events to connect people. It has film screenings. It offers workshops and trainings. And it supports the activities of these other NGOs that we're talking about. Here we sit in the Core to Shore Redevelopment District. Core to Shore is redevelopment. The city is using the Kelo decision to take property. But for once, California may be ahead of the rest of the country and on the right track. California has abandoned redevelopment because even Jerry Brown found it to be corrupt, expensive, and that it drained the state's finances and resources. Core-to-shore planning. In 2006, Oklahoma City took an ambitious planning process to develop 750 acres of underutilized land between the core of downtown and the shore of the Oklahoma River. The aspects of the core-to-shore plan include creation of a pedestrian-friendly, that means get out of your car, you're now going to walk, and live on the 32nd floor, and you're going to walk to your grocery store and walk to your work. Development of mixed use. Well, mixed use, commercial on the bottom, housing on the top, is designed as a core element of the Smart Growth Program. And relocation of some of the existing businesses and homes in the area. That means the people they don't like are out. Welcome to America in the 21st century. Core to Shore is a master plan that will take land out of private hands and off the tax rolls and put it into the hands of public-private partnerships or into public land. Core to Shore is a model for public-private partnership. That is economic fascism. Now let's take a look at how Agenda 21 affects food and farming. The Commonwealth urban farms of Oklahoma City. Now you're on the route to becoming truly self-sufficient here in Oklahoma City, and let me explain how. The Commonwealth Urban Farms vision is of a vibrant local food network in Oklahoma City, through which every person has access to real food. I guess you're not eating real food, while supporting the health of the environment and the community. Our mission is to grow food on vacant lots throughout Oklahoma City. Now that's farming brought to a new low. We want to provide training and resources for a network of urban gardeners. This is all over Portland right now, by the way. To expand retail outlets for locally grown food, to turn local waste into compost, and to connect neighbors and neighborhoods so that our common waste and underutilized resources become our common wealth. I told you they're out to make us peasants. Actually, they told us they're out to make us peasants. Here we see it. Plant your garden. Dangerous times may be ahead. Federal government is in on this. USDA, guiding principles for USDA sustainable development. USDA policy statement on sustainable development. USDA Council on Sustainable Development. They've got all kinds of partner links for sustainable development. The Department of Agriculture is an agent of Agenda 21. Their website contains over 220 references to the pursuit of Agenda 21. As a result, farmers often have to succumb to becoming partners with an oversized federal gorilla or get swallowed up by a sustainable insider, or to do business with the Nature Conservancy. The USDA's Office of Chief Economist writes this: the United States government has joined with foreign governments, international organizations, non-governmental organizations, and academia and the private sector to plan and implement voluntary partnerships that promote economic growth, social development, and environmental stewardship. Those again are the 3 E's. Voluntary partnerships. You can be a partner with the federal government on Agenda 21 programs, or you can be out of business. Your choice. It's voluntary. Who gave the federal government stewardship over the citizens' land? Have we been taken over? What system better protects property and derives more social benefit? A central government or you and me and other individuals working to mutual interest. The private landowner committed to private interest produces superior results compared to a collectivist organization committed to the common good. This is true whether the measurement is production or stewardship. Let's talk a little about conservation and preservation. The Oklahoma Association of Conservation Districts is called OACD. ACOG, the federalized COG for this area, is involved with OACD. They say that the Oklahoma Association of Conservation Districts wants to remind everyone to do their part to help protect and conserve Oklahoma's natural resources, including taking advantage of a program that allows Oklahomans to offset their environmental footprints. That means they want to set up a system that causes you to pay to use your car. This is part of the Al Gore cap and trade program here through ACOG. Now, the Office of the Secretary of the Environment is the kind of nonsense that is happening in communities everywhere. You want to get an Eco Pass to offset your carbon emissions while traveling in Oklahoma? Well, you can, because this is the transition to a controlled society. You pay the Al Gores in order to transport yourself. Sooner or later, most people under this system will simply not be able to travel. And that's the goal. The Wildlands Network, in operation here in Oklahoma, is helping to create and implement policies and legislation that promote massive land grabs. I just have a couple of marginal examples of that, but plenty of examples could be found. The Oklahoma Historical Society, collect, preserve, share. Historic preservation equals sustainability, and there is no doubt that historic preservation was green before green was cool. The reality is that the Oklahoma Historical Society was confiscatory because before green became the act of confiscation. Byways communities. What is an Oklahoma byway? A byway is the result of dedicated communities working in concert with your Department of Transportation and the University of Oklahoma Outreach. Land-grant universities play a huge role in the Agenda 21 process, whether it's Cal Berkeley or the University of Oklahoma. It doesn't matter. Every state has its federalized implementation being directed through universities where college kids are being fully indoctrinated to the sustainability process. You can go anywhere and find young, progressive people working in businesses, working in government, fully dedicated to sustainability. There may even be some in this room, fully dedicated because that is what they got at their land-grant college. Designation as an Oklahoma byway creates a collaborative effort that promotes community sustainability and fosters efforts to preserve the unique history of the byway. Traveling a byway encourages travelers to experience Oklahoma's diversity. Though Oklahoma is a worthy tourist destination, tourism is the universal pitch when locking up wildlands. You see, they take away the landowner's use of the property because they want to make the byway, because they ultimately want to put it in the wildland zone so that you can't even go there. You know, the reality is that the irony of this sort of thing is that ultimately, again, the wildlands is off limits to human beings. What about the property owners? The programs are designed to implement the Wildlands Network, which necessarily abolishes private property. Planners then leave in their wildland tracts several smart growth communities placed in the wildland buffers. People are becoming as though managed as livestock. Let's talk about community organizing. Joe Joyce of Edmond, Oklahoma, exposes community organizing through churches on her website on Catholic social doctrine and Alinskian community organizing at John 2, that's spelled out, John 2, 24-25.net. If you don't know of Joe Joyce and her work, it's definitely worth checking into. But more community organizing comes through the Strong Neighborhoods Initiative. Strong Neighborhoods Initiative claims to be where a great city is only possible where it's made up of strong, livable neighborhoods. Remember, livable neighborhoods is one of those warm and fuzzy terms that I referenced in the first section of this presentation. The city empowers neighborhood action through a long-standing partnership with the Neighborhood Alliance of Central Oklahoma. The Neighborhood Alliance provides organizing assistance, leadership training, and technical assistance to neighborhood associations across the city. And it is these associations that are indoctrinating ordinary citizens who are not here today into the sustainability program. San Jose, California, has the same program as this. It's called Strong Neighborhoods Initiative. These are cookie-cutter projects that are all across the country, and Oklahomans are being sucked in. It is a Soviet outreach with predetermined conclusions. The Council of Neighborhoods is also a Soviet-styled organization. Neighborhood councils pervert the system of government. Our cities and neighborhoods have been invaded by globalist operatives operating locally. They have been swarmed and corralled by federalized regional agents. America has been Sovietized. You know, they buy you off. They give you some money to begin to implement their little programs to get you on the bandwagon. Not every citizen joins up, but enough of them do, and the rest of us sit quietly, that they are controlling the entire political, economic dynamic of today. Let's talk a little bit about education. You know, that can be a whole day discussion. The youth are being prepped for global citizenship, and the effort is working. In polling, we learned that a majority of 2009 high school and college graduates self-identify as global citizens, not as Americans. Sustainability is being jammed down every youngster's throat. The future is at risk. The school, I think, is right around here. The Classen School, built back in the 20s, is an old school. The Classen mission is to ensure that all students learn at high levels to become high-quality, academically prepared global citizens. Why do we send our children there? Why is it that I run into so many adults? A number of women, after speeches, start crying because they feel they've lost their children. The mistake they recognize is that they sent their child to school. We live in a country where it is a mistake for most of us to send our children to school because the children come out as global citizens, serfs to the New World Order. The children are being scared, indoctrinated, and culled in accordance with their usefulness to world government and world religion. Here we see the Oklahoma Green Schools program. Every state has a Green Schools program. Free environmental educational materials. The children are being just overlaid with this environmental nonsense to the exclusion of learning what it is Americans need to understand. These are the participating organizations. The school system is indoctrinating our children into global citizens through a commitment to globalist ideology. They are not being taught the values of the American experiment. They are being fed fear regarding climate change issues. Little children are being brainwashed at school. To whom do the children belong? Who decides? Take your children back. Examine what your schools are doing. We must reverse the localized globalist advance. If these programs and initiatives proceed unabated, this is what you need to imagine. Communities surrounded by open space that ultimately you cannot access. In these communities, human action is monitored and controlled, and where New World human settlements or smart growth patterns are connected by public transportation corridors. Agenda 21 deceptively uses warm and fuzzy terms designed to lead people into believing that they will live happily in regions comprised of sustainable communities, cool cities with climate action compacts, smart growth neighborhoods, walkable communities, and transit villages as human population is grinded and culled. All brought to you under a United Nations program courtesy of the federal executive branch, Democrats and Republicans. Today, all cabinet-level departments have deployed termites to nationalize and localize Agenda 21 policy. This is how our cities are being sucked in. Real leaders are needed at City Hall and on the school board. Defederalize our communities. Defeat the globalist assault on America. Let America reemerge as America, a land where people are politically recognized as individuals possessing natural or unalienable rights. The original American concept is the culmination of Western achievement. It is a recognition that man is made in the image and likeness of God, and that therefore all law must reflect this natural foundation. So consider what has been illustrated here today. Regionalism, smart growth, public-private partnership, the Wildlands Network, and components of sustainable ideology. The federal government, with its taxing policy and its conditions or strings for return of those tax dollars, allows the federal government to exert dominant pressure on states and increasingly through COGS on local governments through sustainability requirements. DC's commitment to America's transformation into a global economic system is very clear today. Every hometown has experienced elements of this transformation. Is that all right with you? What are we leaving our children? Why are we abandoning the American pursuit of individual liberty and equal justice? As the dollar crashes around us, central Oklahoma, all of Oklahoma, and more have been set up as a region to operate within and under a global order. With the transformation comes the end of the American experiment. Lost is the idea of private property. The path for Americans will become very hard if ordinary people do not reverse the Agenda 21 implementation. Now, you can help to reverse this process. For instance, the city of Norman has a series of upcoming meetings regarding citywide high-density regulations. 6 public meetings will be held between June 11th and August 30th. I suggest you learn how to defeat the consensus process and attend these meetings. Have a strategy. Observe, record, and study the proposal, and apply the mechanism available to bust the consensus. Information on the dates and locations of these meetings is available at the City of Norman website. Go to freedomadvocates.org to learn how to bust the prearranged consensus. So what can you do? You got to start by thinking locally. Expose the regional Soviet system running local government. That is where freedom will be won or lost. Go after and expose ORC, ACOG, Plan OKC, the Oklahoma Sustainability Network, Sustainable OKC, Transition Oklahoma City, ICLEI, the Central Oklahoma Regional Transit Dialogue, for what they all are. That is a massive fifth column leading Oklahoma down the path to becoming an outpost to the new totalitarian world order. Remember the essence of this mission. restore the principles set forth in the Declaration of Independence. Protect life, liberty, and the use and enjoyment of property. Next, don't compromise the principles of freedom. Fight smart growth and wildland projects in your area. Restore the idea of private property, and then look behind the green mask. Discover the philosophical folly of the environmental movement. So what are our demands? Well, the federal government is where the transformation is coming from. It is now everywhere, including central Oklahoma. So take counteraction locally. Local pro-action is our best and maybe only strategy to stave off world government at this late date. Get the federal government out of your county and then out of Oklahoma. This means having your city withdraw from the COG and MPO. Otherwise, you will have been Sovietized. Then kick out of your county the U.S. Forest Service and the USDA, the Federal Department of Interior, and the Federal Department of Education. Next, remove globalists from all local governing boards. You can start with your mayor. And substitute them with people who understand the internationalist threat in its Agenda 21 action plan. Then, terminate all contracts and all contacts with ICLEI. Remove the ICLEI organization and all policy that resulted from that association. And disassociate with NGOs. If you understand your area's local Agenda 21 program, you can win back your town or neighborhood from Agenda 21 policies. Then you can move on to a broader area. Ultimately, people will combine with others working similarly around Oklahoma. Oklahoma and Tulsa can be friends.
You've done your research.
You must expunge sustainable policy from your state law and out of Oklahoma's bureaucracy. The globalist course can be reversed, but soon it will become too late. America's political leaders are not going to address this problem. So it is up to the citizens. The leaders will follow. We must defeat local implementation of Agenda 21, because if people do nothing, America becomes the land of the collected and home of the enslaved. When enough states have recaptured their citizens' liberty, the federal government can be taken on effectively. Then we will have salvaged the American experiment in individual liberty, equal justice, and the political recognition of every individual's unalienable rights. Long live the United States of America. Long live freedom-loving people everywhere. And may God bless us in this pursuit. Thank you.